bring it in the state of Florida. The jurisdiction, of course, will be an issue. He will have to prove that somehow the people of Florida were inconvenienced and outraged by the editing of that Panorama documentary, and whether he'll be able to find anybody in Florida who actually watched that Panorama documentary, I think, is a huge question.
The Home Office has begun deportation proceedings in the case of Julia Van Delt. She was convicted of harassing the family of the missing toddler Madeleine McCann. The 24-year-old was given a 6-month prison sentence, which was less than the time she'd spent on remand. At least 8 people have been killed after a car explosion in New Delhi. It happened near the city's historic Red Fort, which is a major tourist attraction. A man's appeared in court accused of murdering a woman in Birmingham city centre. 34-year-old Katie Fox was stabbed on Friday night. In the city, the FTSE 100 closed up 105 points at 97.87. The pound will buy $1.32 and €1.14. LBC weather: rain will push across eastern areas overnight before more rain hits the west, a low of around 5 degrees. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Tim Daly.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Cross Question with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 8 on LBC. Welcome to Monday's Cross Question. On the panel with me, to my left, Siân Berry, Green Party MP for Brighton Pavilion, the former leader of the party. To her left, Lord James Bethell, Conservative peer, who's a former Health Minister. To my right, Lucy Harris, former Brexit Party and Conservative MEP, and a former Conservative Special Advisor. Next to her, Matt Stadlen, political commentator. He's the host of the podcast 20 Questions With. We'll ask him about that a little bit later. It's your chance to ask our panel any question you like about the great issues of the day, whether they concern the BBC or not, and leave it entirely up to you. And of course, you can text us on 84850. You can WhatsApp us on 0345 6060 973. We'll have your calls on that number. And do watch us on Global Player or the LBC YouTube channel.
Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Cross Question with Iain Dale. This is LBC.
Right, let's go to our first question. It's a text question from Gordon in Hampstead, who says, is a Britain without the BBC imaginable? Donald Trump probably thinks so. Now, Matt Stadlen, I think I'm right in saying you're the only one of us that's ever worked for the BBC, so let's start off with you.
I was there for 8.5 years, working in news, bending over backwards, I should say, every day to be impartial and accurate. Sadly, I think it's becoming increasingly possible to imagine a future without the BBC, and I think that would be disastrous because, of course, it's going to make mistakes from time to time. It's an organisation, certainly when I was there, of about 23,000 people. But that doesn't mean that it's institutionally biased. It doesn't mean that it's systemically biased. And it has some very powerful enemies who are now almost coordinating, it's tempting to feel, to try to put it out and put it down and destroy it. And in a world of AI and mis and disinformation, in a world where one of the most powerful men in the world is Elon Musk, who himself has shared at least misinformation and arguably disinformation, I think without the BBC, our democracy in this country will become even more challenged, even more threatened than it already is.
When you look at the disinformation and you look at that promo that Clive Myrie does virtually every night on the BBC about disinformation and why the BBC exists to eliminate disinformation, and then they're caught out doing what they did on Panorama, that rather undermines the argument, doesn't it? And you can say, well, it's one person, but there weren't editorial controls there to make sure that sort of thing didn't happen.
Well, presumably there were controls. And as far as I could see when I read about this, I think it was actually produced, that Panorama, by an independent television company, which I find very surprising because I would have thought that sort of programme should be done in-house, where producers are imbued, certainly when I was there.
Panorama was in-house.
So did I, but I thought it was produced by an external company. I may be wrong about that. That's what I
think the Gaza one was. You're right on that.
Okay. The broader point is, how many reports, how many documentaries, how many programmes about Donald Trump before his first term, during his first term, after his first term, and during so far his second term, has the BBC broadcast, produced, put out thousands, if not tens of thousands, online, on radio, on television. As far as I can see, the charge sheet is this single documentary, this single clip in a documentary. It was a bad mistake. It shouldn't have happened. The BBC should have been far quicker to come out and apologise for it. But the idea that they are somehow out to get the President of the United States is completely farcical. If they were, we'd have a lot more evidence than that.
Lucy Harris.
So my perspective is that, British culture, the BBC has been part of it for such a long time. And I'm probably not going to have the opinion that many would expect me to have, but it would be a shame for it to go. However, over the past few years, you have seen an increasing amount of bias. And that's what I saw, particularly when I was campaigning during the Brexit years. I wasn't treated like the vote that won. I was treated like somebody who was derided, somebody who was not seen as on a par with the rest of the people that voted Remain. And that was precisely why I set up a campaign back in the day, because I saw that there is, whether I'm going to use the term, a liberal elite that does have a certain viewpoint and a worldview in positions of influential power within our media that do impose their worldview on others. And this is such a great example. And I would like to say that, it's not that maybe there is somebody with an agenda against Donald Trump. I think the issue is here that the BBC is known across the world as a trusted source of information. And if you are going to doctor a documentary on Donald Trump, the President of the United States, and
a week before the election, and say that it's not that big a deal, we have so many other documentaries that we haven't done that, that's not an excuse. And you do have an editorial responsibility of all third parties that make videos for you. And to say that, it was a third party, it wasn't our fault, that's not good enough. And if that's the standard that you hold, then maybe the BBC should be worried for its future, because there are so many others that could do it. You would regret it if it wasn't there. I mean, it would be regretful, but I do increasingly think that they've gone past the Rubicon. I think there has to be some. I mean, in the Tory government, there was a lot of pushback against the BBC, and there was some standards set, but I now think that there should be some sort of market leverage here where we do put them out to pasture and see how they fare in the real world instead of getting money direct. OK. Siân Berry.
I mean, I think the BBC is incredibly important. It is an establishment broadcaster. I'm from the Green Party, and I do see establishment bias from the BBC quite a lot. I was part of the anti-war movement in the early 2000s, and I well remember going on marches where the BBC would report the police say 10,000 people were there and the organisers say there were 100,000. And so, the establishment point of view comes first. That is really understandable from an organisation like that. But I don't think it's become biased or more biased in recent years. I think it has become politicised. We've seen what was clearly a political appointment of Robbie Gibb to the board. We've seen a lot of controversy over Tim Davies' original appointment. Can I just
slightly push back on that? Because nobody ever complained when Gavin Davies was made chairman of the BBC, Gordon Brown's best friend.
I think somebody might have complained.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is not one thing that only one political party does. There have always been political appointments.
I think that's a good point. And I think a lot of people are trying to gain traction now for this idea that the BBC should be disenfranchised, taken away from its public funding model that it's had for a very long time.
Even Nigel Farage doesn't want to. I mean, at his press conference today, he said, I don't want to see the BBC gone. I really value the BBC.
But he does want to take away the licence fee, though.
Yeah, so do a lot of people.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Particularly those who aren't paying it now because they don't actually watch the BBC anymore.
Well, then you don't have to pay it if you don't watch the BBC.
Well, you do actually. Legally, you do have to pay the licence fee. If you've got a television in your house, you still have to pay it.
If you have a receiving equipment, yeah, absolutely. But I think the key thing that we're looking at today is there is a concerted attack going on from people who are not wedded to the values of truth, of journalistic integrity. And we do know that Donald Trump is not wedded to those. We know that in America, he is going after media organisation after media organisation who try to uphold those kinds of standards. The very sort of traditional newspapers in America who rate very, very highly those standards of journalistic integrity, and they've started to report truthfully on what he says. I remember the New York Times starting to say, look, he lies so often, what we're going to have to do is add the words without evidence to his claims, because his claims are reportable because he's the President of the United States. We have to report these things. But where he bases them on no facts whatsoever, we're going to add the words without evidence. And they do that quite a lot now. I don't often see the BBC doing that to him. They often report his comments in a purely straightforward way. Donald Trump has said this, and then they ask other people to give their opinions on whether there's evidence. But there is an objective truth that journalists should be seeking out, and I do believe that the BBC has that in its charter, in its values, in its objects, and the things that it strives for. And I do think there has been too much politicisation of some of the appointments, some of the scrutiny of appointments, some of the things that are said about it in recent years. I think it's worth defending. It's something that's a good institution in our country.
James.
I love the BBC, and it isn't just about the news organisation. It is about, for most people, the sports and the drama, the animal programmes and all of that. So we're not here talking about the whole of the BBC. We're talking about one part of its news programming. And that tends to be that really edgy stuff where they're trying to get scoops or to emote some kind of opinion. And that's the bit that has consistently got them into trouble. And I just wonder whether we should have a BBC that is trying to do that all the time, and whether this is a self-indulgence in a modern digital age. There's no shortage of places to get your news from. There's thousands of them. Not all of them are completely untrustworthy. And I just wonder whether this monoculture beer myth is really helping itself and helping the nation and helping the licence player by consistently trying to get itself into trouble on big stories where, frankly, they've proved unqualified to be able to deliver what they've promised.
I couldn't disagree much more with you on that, James. I go to I'm left-leaning, right? I would describe myself as centre-left. I go to the Telegraph much more than I go to the Guardian. And I want to know what's going on from that perspective. I want to know what's going on from all sorts of different perspectives. But they are perspectives. We know that the Telegraph is right-leaning. We know that the Guardian is left-leaning. We can give other examples, the Mail, the Mirror, and so forth. The great thing about the BBC is that in its bones and in its charter, it is impartial. That is fundamental to its being, and not just impartial, but accurate. Now, because, as I said earlier, it is staffed by human beings, and lots of them, wherever you get human beings, you get mistakes. What happened in this Panorama documentary was a mistake. I think it was a bad mistake, but it shouldn't delegitimise one of our, not only our great British cultural institutions, but also a way that we can find objective news, so far as human beings are capable of being objective, in the quagmire of mass mis and disinformation and opinion.
But Michael, the problem with that very powerful and persuasive testimony for the BBC is that I personally do not share your perspective at all. I absolutely have the BBC in the same category as The Guardian. And if I am trying to find out about what's going on in the world, like you, I will do a tour of publications. And there is no way that I think that the BBC is some kind of ultimate truth, middle point, that if the BBC says it, I can lean on it. I absolutely have it in the same category as The Guardian.
So wrong to do that. The Guardian does not give
Michael,
endless,
respect,
Matthew, and it doesn't give endless column inches to Nigel Farage, to Zia Youssef, who is head of policy at Reform, who's not been elected.
That's the problem.
The BBC does. The BBC gives vast amounts of space, and arguably rightly so, because it is leading in the polls, to Nigel Farage, to Richard Tice, to Zia Youssef. You go to The Guardian, almost certainly you won't find that. To lump the BBC together with The Guardian is simply fake news.
It really isn't, Matthew. I am a parliamentarian. I've had 40 years of experience in the media and in politics. And my judgment is that there's no way the BBC is some kind of impartial ultimate truth. And that is the view of most people in Britain.
I mean, it is an interesting fact that when newspapers really mattered, the number of Guardian copies ordered every day from the BBC was roughly double what they ordered from the Daily Telegraph, which does tell you something, doesn't it?
When I was at the BBC, my experience was, and it's only anecdotal, that the BBC was very alive to what the Daily Mail was thinking.
Why did they misjudge the Brexit referendum then? Because if they really were in touch with what the Daily Mail readers were thinking, they wouldn't have got it so catastrophically wrong.
Do you guys not remember that febrile time of Brexit before and after? Do you not remember when James O'Brien, another presenter on LBC, and Alistair Campbell, I certainly remember, they were laying into the BBC for what they felt was undue prominence to the Brexit side of the argument. The whole point about the BBC
I'm not sure that really makes your case.
No, I'll tell you why it makes my case. Because traditionally, the BBC has been attacked from the left, it's been attacked from the right. On Gaza and Israel, it's been attacked by people who support, broadly speaking, the Palestinian side of things. It's been attacked by people who, broadly speaking, support the Israeli side of things. The BBC, yes, sometimes it might give false equivalence in its desperation to find balance, but the BBC tries relentlessly, in my experience, to get it right. And if we lose it, I think we are in an irretrievable mess.
Right, we've got another question on this, but let's go to a break first. It's 16 minutes past 8.
This is LBC.
Have you ever wondered what a sandwich sounds like? Not much to it, is there? Unless, of course, it's a Walker's sandwich. That is good. Now that's what a sarnie should sound like. Go all crisp in with Walker's. Delicious.
How's the business going? We're busier than ever, but struggling to get the staff we need. Recruiting can be such a distraction. We gave Job Centre Plus a try, and they've really helped us out. Really? Yeah, it was dead easy. We got our own employer advisor, Julie, who helped advertise our jobs, shortlisted candidates for us, and let us interview at the Job Centre. We've hired some great people, and Job Centre Plus really took the hassle out of it, and there was no fee.
Brilliant. That's straight on my to-do list.
Find out more at business.gov.uk/recruit. Eligibility criteria apply.
At Pets in a Pickle, we're here when it matters most. For fuss-free pet insurance policies as unique as they are, visit petsinapickle.co.uk.
Our Black Friday event is now on, so book a Jet2 holiday now and save £200 per couple. As always, you'll get 22 kilograms of baggage included too. Whether you want a last-minute escape or to get next year's holiday sorted, book with just a £60 deposit per person and secure your Black Friday saving now. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. After Natural Protected. Subject to availability and conditions.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
18 minutes past 8. Let me reintroduce my panel. Siân Berry from the Green Party, James Bethell from the Conservatives, Lucy Harris. How do we describe you? Are you currently a Conservative?
I am, yes.
And Matt Stadlen is of no fixed political abode, but broadly on the left. That's how you self-described, didn't you?
I'm perfectly happy, as not working for the BBC anymore, not for a long time, to say that I campaigned for the Labour government. And like a lot of people, I'm mildly disappointed.
Yeah, we might come on to that. We might come on to that in a minute. Right, Gary is in Glossop. Hello, Gary.
Hi there, panel. Should the taxpayer end up paying the legal fees should we take on Donald Trump?
So if Donald Trump sues the BBC, do you mean the licence fee payer or the general taxpayer?
No, the licence fee payer.
Right.
It's currently $170, but if it's like the water board and the sewerage, they fine them millions, but then it goes on, everybody pays another £50 on the bill.
All right, Gary, well, that's an interesting one, because presumably it would be the licence fee payer that would stump up James.
I'm afraid, I've been in that position having been a minister. I'm afraid, absolutely, you're going to be sent a big bill if Donald Trump gets his billion, for sure.
Well, that's... I wonder what the BBC would cut. I mean, they might as well abolish the news department.
They'd have to cut strictly. Look, save strictly.
Just to return to what I was saying earlier, I've done my research, and that, at least according to BBC News, if indeed we can trust BBC News, which I think we can, it was produced, strangely, that panorama, by an independent television company, and I am opposed to that. I hadn't known that before. I think issues as serious issues.
Responsibility for
of course, it does. I'm just saying that in order to avoid a repeat of that sort of error, I would suggest that the BBC takes in-house as a matter of urgency anything like Panorama. It needs to be done in-house where people are imbued with the values.
We should bring Question Time in-house as well, because that's got real issues with balance at the moment.
Well, you and I would agree on that, but possibly not from the same point of view. Sean, what about, should the licence fee payer have to end up paying the BBC's legal fees?
I mean, that is the thing that everyone wants to avoid. We've seen the really fulsome apology today, and I think pulling the thing off air, apologising for it, ought to minimise the amount of damages that end up being paid. But yeah, this is a real risk. The man does sue everybody in sight all of the time, and he's done the same.
Does win sometimes.
And he declares it. He declares that he wants to drive a media organisation that's annoyed him out of business, and that's probably what he's trying to get at today with the BBC, and we'll see. But it would mean massive cuts at the BBC in order to not put that onto the licence.
So if there were massive cuts, which bit of the BBC would you happily cut?
Oh, good question. Actually, not much. No, that's a real public service, making sure that the lesser sports get some coverage. It's really important that we have good dramas and entertainment made in this country, that the BBC upholds those kinds of.
But they are being made by Netflix.
I mean, sort of, but the BBC also has a remit to reflect sort of daily life in the UK. I've seen some of the Netflix Christmas films where somebody visits the UK and it's nothing like the UK. We do need to see people's real lives reflected back on us in documentary, in drama, and that's part of what the BBC is about. They shouldn't have to cut back on any of that.
Lucy,
have I got news for you? I mean, it's not funny anymore. Iain.
That's not nice for Lewis Goodall and my colleague who was on
sorry,
Friday.
It's just not funny anymore. And, I went off it a long time ago during the Brexit years when, Brexit lived rent-free in Hislop's Head. And I think that should be cut. It's not funny anymore. And I think a lot of their comedy shows aren't very funny, mainly because a lot of their comedians
That's enough about Mrs. Brown's Board. Matt?
I don't think people would want Celebrity Traitors to be taken away from the BBC, would they?
Yeah, I would.
It was hugely popular, wasn't it?
Yeah, but why is the BBC making a programme like that?
So that was slightly tongue-in-cheek. The more serious issue is it's quite difficult, actually, if you start from scratch to defend the BBC having drama, for example, because that could be taken out of house. It can be produced elsewhere. There are good arguments for the BBC doing things beyond news, moments that we can all still come around together as a nation for our public service broadcaster. My concern is news. And just to take a step back briefly from this, although the BBC did make a big mistake on that documentary, I think, in that clip, that day Donald Trump did, and he's accused the BBC of undermining democracy. He was fundamentally undermining democracy in America, let us not forget. On January the 6th, 2021, he was encouraging protesters, not violently, he was encouraging protesters to march on the Capitol to protest against the democratic will of the people of the United States, which he refused to accept. So for him to call the BBC... democratic right, it was fundamentally undermining of democracy. Imagine if that had happened in this country.
But he didn't call for violent insurrection.
I didn't say he did.
Which is what the panel programme made out he did.
I've said it's a mistake. My point is, for him to accuse the BBC of threatening democracy when, as a president, a still sitting president, he was saying that the American people had been defrauded. That was an outrage.
Okay. Well, let's move on to another outrage, possibly, depending on your point of view. Jeff in Darlington says, how can Rachel Reeves possibly justify putting income taxes up while making it easier to claim benefits? Well, the Chancellor's given another hint today that the two-child benefit cap will be scrapped in this month's budget, saying that it is not right that a child is penalised because they're in a bigger family through no fault of their own. Siân?
The question is why put up income taxes, and I don't think the Chancellor should do that if it isn't just at the very, very highest rate. I think people's earned income is the thing that isn't undertaxed. It is people's held wealth and people's unearned capital gains that ought to face the taxes. And this is a proposal that most people support. YouGov did some polling and found that 75% of people support a wealth tax on assets that are held, that are wealth assets. They called it the Green Party's proposal, but it's actually a proposal that's quite a lot older than when we started to talk about it, because it is such a glaring gap in our tax policies. So that is what the Chancellor should be aiming at, and she absolutely should be aiming the money that she raises in alleviating the poverty of the people who are struggling the most. And the injustice of the two-child benefit cap is something that I think the vast majority of people support. I think in Parliament we've made several efforts to try and force votes on this from the government, and they've tried so hard to avoid that. It is something that's absolutely essential, and I think should be one of the first things to go. And we need the pressure taking off the DWP over disabled people's benefits as well. People are still terrified that the future plans for benefits are going to make life much harder for people who are disabled, who cannot work at the moment, or who can work but need extra funding. That's what PIP is, in order to live equal lives with the rest of us.
What about the deficit?
Awful things that have been talked about. Well, these are cost neutral proposals. You raise money and then you spend it.
Yeah, but we have a deficit that is pushing up our debt to nearly £3 trillion. We're paying £120 billion in interest every single year. Surely the main priority of any government, no matter what its complexion, should be to get that deficit down and try and pay off the debt.
But at a certain point, cutting, and we've seen this with austerity, cutting public spending actually is a false economy. You depress the nation. People who are not helped when they are facing temporary difficulties get worse, and then they can't go back to work again. People who are struggling because their families are under too much pressure aren't entrepreneurial. They're just struggling to get by. So you depress the country with more of this.
I was driving at the weekend and I listened to a woman seriously expecting us all to feel sorry for her because her £105 a month benefit, I can't remember what the benefit was, had been withdrawn, and it made it so difficult to afford our holiday in New York City. I thought, oh, get real. Is this what our benefits? I can't remember what it.
That's apocryphal.
It's not apocryphal. I was listening to the woman saying it live on the radio, and I was thinking, what kind of benefit system allows people to use taxpayers' money to fund their trips to New York City? It's outrageous.
I don't know what benefits you're talking about here.
Well, I don't either, because
you're not talking about PIP. But maybe someone needs extra funding in order to be able to get to work. Maybe someone needs extra funding.
Yeah, but this woman didn't.
To be able
That's
to
my
afford,
point.
taxis.
But she didn't see anything wrong with it either.
I mean, I don't know what that's about.
James.
The benefits are, by and large, doing good for the country, and they should not be cut back.
This happens on a cycle. Right now, we have millions of people who are out of work because of self-declared sickness, who should not be sitting on the welfare costs. They're in a welfare trap that we have created for them that means that they get almost no health support, no genuine effort by the community to get them back into productive, self-improving, prosperous work, and instead are at home on the sofa deteriorating. That's lousy for the economy, it's lousy for the welfare bill, and it's lousy for the income tax that they should be paying. And genuinely, Ian, you're right, this is going to bankrupt the entire country.
That's a very crude stereotype.
It is not a stereotype. We've had more than 1 million drop out of active employment. Many of them are young, many of them have got mental health, many of them have got musculoskeletal. These are not people who are classically disabled and who genuinely and quite rightly need the support of their community in order to get through the day.
Do you know what people have to go through to claim benefits?
Well, quite often they have turned up at their GPs, been given a sick note, and my anger is that we don't then do anything to get them back to work. Instead, they atrophy at home, costing the country a fortune, both in terms of cash in welfare, but also, importantly, missed opportunity for them to contribute in the taxes.
And you think withdrawing the benefits is the way to give them more motivation?
We definitely can't continue as we can. You've got your head in the sand.
Very Victorian.
If you think it's not Victorian, it is absolutely practical. And if you talk to the people involved, they are desperate for support and help. Often
I'm an MP. I see
workplace.
people every single week who are having problems with the benefit system.
Yes, because it's completely overwhelmed with millions and millions of people. The welfare bill and the quantity of people now who are dependent on the state in order to cover their costs has grown out of control, and it genuinely will bankrupt us. The NHS, I don't think, is doing a good job of keeping people healthy in the first place. And we are not doing a good job in terms of giving people the skills, the education, and the problem support that they deserve.
It's a virtuous cycle, though, of reinvestment, not threatening to remove benefits. That is the way forward.
This isn't just about threatening people. It is about recognising that these are people. A lot of these people should be in work, and we need to have a journey to get them back to work as soon as possible.
Right.
And those who are dropping out need to be supported.
We are going to put Matt and Lucy back to work after the news. It's 8:31 on LBC. Let's get the news headlines from Tim Daly.
Donald Trump is threatening to sue the BBC for $1 billion if it doesn't remove a selectively edited speech at the centre of a major backlash. The footage from a Panorama programme appears to show the US leader inciting violence. The Home Office has begun deportation proceedings in the case of Julia Van Delt. She was convicted of harassing the family of the missing toddler Madeleine McCann. And an appeals court in Paris has decided to release the former French president Nicolas Sarkozy from prison. He'll be placed under judicial supervision after being convicted of criminal conspiracy to finance an election campaign. LBC weather: a band of rain will push across eastern areas overnight. Clear spells will develop behind it before more rain arrives in the west. We'll see a low of around 5 degrees.
Do you know your state pension age? No. Maybe you're not sure, or you don't know how to check. It's so quick and easy to check online. All you need is your date of birth. Knowing your state pension age helps you think about your future. So check yours today. Search state pension age on gov.uk and simply enter your date of birth. State pension age. It's good to know.
Hillary's best ever Black Friday sale is now on, and it doesn't get any better than this, with an extra 10% off absolutely everything. That's on top of up to 50% off hundreds of made-to-measure blinds, curtains and shutters. Plus, control your blinds from anywhere with a half-price smart hub when you buy any electric blind, with measuring and fitting always included. And word to the window wise. Order now for blinds and curtains fitted in time for Christmas. Book your free in-home appointment today at hillarys.co.uk. Conditions apply.
It's that time of year again, which can only mean one thing. Save a third off roasting joints at Waitrose. Choose from tender beef silverside, succulent whole brined and seasoned chicken, or juicy beach smoked gammon. So, fire up your ovens and give winter a warm welcome with a third off roasting joints. Waitrose, the home of food lovers.
Selected lines and stores subject to availability. Prices may vary in channel islands. Little Waitrose and partners and concessions. Offer ends 11th of November.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC.
8:33 on LBC. Siân Berry, the former Green Party leader, now Green Party MP for Brighton Pavilion, is here. Which do you enjoy most, being a constituency MP or being leader of the Green Party?
I really, really enjoy my current job. I always say that about all my jobs. So I love being an assembly member. I actually really enjoyed being co-leader of the Green Party, and I like being co-leader actually with Jonathan. It was a really, really good gig. That.
Not quite sure it works though.
We can all have different opinions. If you're
from a
in
general
the job,
public point of view.
having a team that works. I work really closely with Amelia Womack as our deputy as well. We were kind of a team of 3, and I really liked that. And obviously Zach's brilliant, but he's kind of on his own. He doesn't have someone in exactly the same position to relate to.
No, the Green Party's double the popularity that it was when you were leader.
He's got so much energy.
How jealous are you, Siân?
Have you not seen those? He does so much. I couldn't do what he's doing right now in terms of media stuff.
Right, James Bethell is here, Conservative peer, former Health Minister. Lucy Harris is former Brexit Party and Conservative Party MEP. And Matt Stadlen, political commentator, host of the 20 Questions With podcast, which kind of does what it says on the tin. Who's your latest victim?
Actually, today I interviewed Stephen Finn, who is a triple Ashes winning England cricketer. He's about to go and cover the Ashes in Australia. We all hope we win, unless you're Australian, of course. But I just love the variety of it. I've got Ian Hislop on soon. You won't be pleased to discover Lucy, Mary Beard, the classicists. I've interviewed a lot of Conservatives as well. Sir Jeremy Hunt, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, they all seem to have knighthoods these days. Sir John Redwood, because I like talking to people with different views to mine.
Right, now let's go back to the question which we didn't have time to put to you before the news. Jeff in Darlington, how can Rachel Reeves possibly justify putting income tax up while making it easier to claim benefits? Matt?
I think if Labour break their central manifesto pledge on raising one of those three taxes, arguably they did so last year by raising national income contributions on insurance on employers, but they were sort of able a little bit to smuggle that under the covers. If they were to raise income tax, I find it really, really difficult to see how they win the next election, even though an overwhelming majority of this country do not want Nigel Farage to be our Prime Minister. I think Labour would make it very, very difficult for themselves. You just think back to the Lib Dems breaking that pledge on tuition fees. They were wiped out, weren't they, at the next election after that coalition government. I think this would be a breathtaking thing to do politically. From a policy point of view, it may well be the right thing. I'm impressed that Rachel Reeves is brave enough to continue to commit to capital investment. I don't think nearly enough of that was done under previous governments, under Tory governments, although they might beg to differ. It is vital that we think beyond the immediate electoral cycle, or we will not get ourselves out of the economic mess we are in. Just quickly on the benefits. It is believed, I think research has shown, that if you were to scrap this 2-child benefit cap, which, remember, Labour campaigned passionately against when they were in opposition and when it was introduced, I think, under George Osborne, if you scrap that, it will do wonders for child poverty. Now, I understand there are a lot of people who are doing reasonably well and feel they can't afford to have more than 2 children. And some of them might say, why should we be paying for other people's children? My answer to that is, it is not the fault of the child that they were born. And therefore, I think you shouldn't discriminate against 3rd and 4th children.
It will also cost them a lot of votes, because it's enormous.
Well, Nigel Farage wants to scrap it, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, he's got a point, electorally speaking.
He tends to pick policies that he thinks are going to be popular.
Lucy?
I think there's absolutely no justification. I mean, it was in the manifesto that they weren't going to do it, and now it looks like they're going to do it. This is a tax on ordinary people. It's a tax on everybody, but it's a tax on working people as well. It's a tax on people who have worked incredibly hard, have already had to endure a lot of taxation in their last budget. And I think, Siân, you indicated that it was, short-term help benefits. But actually, the spending that we're currently at is going to be continuous. This is a long-term situation. And in the press conference that Rachel Reeves gave last week, she indicated that the taxation will always be there. It's always going to come back. She's always going to come back for more money. It isn't just this time round. She's going to keep doing it until the hole is filled, and it will never be filled because the spending will always increase.
What if she doesn't put the basic rate up by 2 pence? Or maybe she does, but then she decreases national insurance.
People under 50,000.
Which would affect pensioners, obviously. Or she freezes the bans for much longer, because she could say, well, I haven't actually raised the rate, but people will see through.
Try and spin that. And what about the people who are earning over £50,000, who might not get the reduction in national insurance contribution? Are we seriously saying that people on £50,000 are not working people? I cannot see how Labour can spin themselves out of breaking.
And apparently that Keir Starmer said the other day, I think I read at the weekend, that the definition of a working person is somebody who earns under 45,000
Yeah, but that's just madness.
Well, it is madness.
Just very briefly, if I may, there are some really important systemic things that we could be doing in this country, with this Labour government, with its majority. If it is going to lose the next election, do what is right. Shouldn't the triple lock be seriously looked into? Shouldn't council tax
just on that, we've got a call sort of vaguely related to that from Ben in Clacton. Ben, go ahead.
Good evening, Ian and panel. Do you agree with me that the raise in income tax and the electric car tax, which I call it, is the 3p a mile, is worse than the actual cuts to the winter fuel allowance?
Why do you think an electric vehicle tax would be worse than that?
Well, if you lived in a village without any transport and you were encouraged to buy an electric car by Ed Miliband, then you've done what the government want you to do, and then they come along and they destroy that by raising the 3p a mile and tax on top of that. And that's financially worse than the cuts to the winter fuel allowance.
Okay, Siân Berry.
I think Ben makes a really good point there, that not all car journeys are equal. And the rumour that there is, which is that electric vehicles will be charged a fee for their sort of annual mileage, regardless of where they drove or what time of day that was. I've always argued for more sophisticated congestion charges than that. Things that actually charge people for driving in the most congested areas, the areas with the highest air pollution, and basing the charge on whether or not they put out air pollution, which electric vehicles put out less, but not none, because they still have tyres, they still have brakes, but also on the time of day and that sort of thing, and the size and the... There's a good campaign at the moment that follows up on my very early 4x4 campaign, wanting to increase charges on very big vehicles, ones that are heavy, ones that are tall, ones that
like
hurt
mine.
people more in terms of road danger.
Do you want to tax me? That's what you say.
I don't know how big or tall or
it's a big
heavy your car is, but
it is size that counts.
It would do a lot more damage if it crashed into somebody because of physics, essentially. And I think they're really important things too. So a flat per mile charge at the end of the year, I'm not sure is that clever.
But don't you also think it would just
better.
kill off electric car sales?
A lot of people would see it as very, very unfair, like Ben here, and people who do high mileage are more incentivised to move to electric vehicles because the difference in per mile spending now compared with petrol is quite good, particularly if you can charge at home.
Do you know the best thing about having an electric car? Is you actually talk to people when you charge it up again, mainly because you can't work out how to do it and somebody else comes and shows you.
Yeah,
but it's actually a very sociable thing.
People almost never talk to each other at the petrol pump.
No, you see taxi drivers doing that, the fast charging
and you're all
places.
swearing together at the electric charger.
Exactly, James.
Well, Ian, you're right. I traded my Disco in for a Fiat 500 thanks to this massive tax break. But if I'm then charged back what I used to get from filling up my Disco, then maybe I'll sell my Fiat.
Is, for the uninitiated, he's talking about a Land Rover Discovery.
And I felt good about it. And what's so odd about the way they do these things, this Labour government, is they drop these bombs at you without rolling the pitch at all.
Well, that's what they're trying to do, though. This is rolling the pitch.
Summer and autumn.
This is rolling the pitch.
They've flown more kites than you get on Hampstead Hill.
You're right.
I don't feel that I have been warmed up to the idea that I'm going to imminently be paying 3p a mile for my Fiat 500.
It is a problem that needs to be solved. I mean, we are losing revenue that goes towards fixing the roads for
which is
revenue.
important
so
to
something
do.
needs to happen.
We're losing fuel duty, right?
Yeah, no, it needs to be fixed, but they do it in this clunky, like with the ID policy, this clunky way that surprises the voter. The Chancellor is going to try to persuade us that the income tax rise is to pay for the NHS. I don't think that's plausible either, because the NHS is proving to be very unreformed, and they're not delivering on productivity or on...
When they came to power, it just doesn't wash, I'm afraid, politically.
Lucy?
Well, I was quite surprised at Siân's answer, because I would have expected that you would want to encourage more people to take up electric vehicles, and to tax them out of existence seems quite counterintuitive.
Did I say anything like that?
Well, I'm just saying that if you would like to, if you're okay with a tax on electric vehicles, I think it's probably, not really what you want to.
No, I was talking about congestion charges more generally that would apply to all vehicles. So it's neutral.
Surely that would also have an impact on electric vehicles and people's uptake of them. Why would they just not get a different kind of car?
If it was a different charge, if it was the same charge per vehicle based on its weight, then it wouldn't be any different.
Okay, well, I just don't understand why there has to be a tax at all. Why would we tax somebody that's already bought a car that they've got a tax break for, and then for it to get taxed again? It feels like very counterintuitive. It feels like people aren't going to listen to the government in the future if they are going to put out environmental policies like this.
How do we get to fill the gap left by fuel duty decrease?
We do need something, and currently public transport users pay through their fares, so something needs to be done. But it needs to be fair, in my view.
Okay.
There seems to be a problem if we move. I'm supportive of green energy, but you can't pretend that what's real isn't real. And if there is a gap caused by a diminution of fuel duty, if we don't find a way to fill that, then public services presumably will take a hit. That's the point. When we come to this budget, all of us should remember, most of us don't want to pay more tax, but all of us should remember that we probably want, unless we're super, super, super rich, we probably want better public services. And yes, of course, government should try to make them more efficient and improve them wherever they can be improved. But if we don't pay our taxes, then we don't get the public services.
I thought that the main point was that the electric car experience has been pretty miserable, and if we have our tax break taken away from us, most of us will trade our electric cars back, which is a bit disappointing after all that effort.
Right, couple of texts here. One says, why are your panel cackling like a bunch of hyenas when answering serious questions? Possibly because, unlike you, they have a sense of humour. Tony says, I want your comments on this one, Sean. Tony, as a gay man, I find Zach Polanski quite irritating. I'm a Labour supporter, but I always loved Sian. She's a legend. She worked harder, in my honest opinion. Zach just has a loud mouth like me.
That's all very confused.
Sort of like half a compliment.
I don't know. I don't like calling Zach irritating. I like the fact that you think I work hard. This is an interesting set of opinions you've got.
Okay, right. We'll take more calls and questions in just a moment. 0345 6060 973. It's 8:46.
On the latest episode of The Newsagents.
Is Donald Trump really responsible for bringing down the BBC Director General and the head of news? Or is there something much more murky going on within New Broadcasting House?
Get the latest episode of The Newsagents with Emily Maitlis, John Sopel and Lewis Goodall. Listen or watch on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard your flight to Geneva. This is your captain speaking, and I would like to take a second to welcome our very special guests. All the skis and snowboards that enjoy a free flight to Winter Wonderland.
The best skiing experiences start with the right airline. Book your winter holiday now on Swiss.com and enjoy free gear transport.
It's easy to forget just how crazy things have been over the past couple of years. Every day we wake up to something new, tariffs and taxes on anything and everything. It's tempting to put your hands in your ears and go, la 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 la, I can't hear you, until it's all over. But you know what's the best response to crazy times? A plan for your money. And Quilter can help. Because let's face it, there's probably going to be some crazy times ahead too. Money needs a plan. Quilter. Pensions, investments, advice. Find out more at quilter.com.
Step aboard the legend of the Titanic, London's award-winning exhibition devoted to the world's most famous ocean liner at Dock X Canada Water. Walk her decks, explore her cabins, discover her secrets. With 360-degree projections, VR, an interactive metaverse, artifacts and more. Book your tickets today at legendoftitanic.com.
Amazon has increased funding for employees to £3,000 a year every year for career development. Like Juliet, she's now a trained technician. And to her, the sound of machinery in need of repair reminds her of how far she's come. In 2 years, she's landed her dream job, providing her with valuable skills. That's up to £3,000 every year for career development at Amazon. Eligibility conditions apply.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC. Text 84850.
8:48, Siân Berry, James Bethell, Lucy Harris and Matt Stadlen with us taking your questions. Brian in Canvey Island. Any migrant who was sent back to France has managed to boomerang themselves straight back here again. Is Starmer's one-in, one-out scheme achieving anything towards stopping people crossing the Channel? Now, the Home Office says this person, the second one to have been deported to France under the scheme, but then crossed the Channel for a second time, will be deported back to France again as soon as possible. The first migrant to have done this has already been deported. James?
It's really disappointing. I think that the trouble that the Tories had with the Home Office was immense. I was a Home Office Minister briefly, and it was a real struggle to get anything done whatsoever. And our Labour opposition derided us at every single thing that we did and voted against every single measure. And they are, I feel, living with those consequences. Until they really grip the department and look at our international treaties and find space to really tackle the boats in the water, then this is what our life's going to be like for the next 3 or 4 years.
Well, apparently we're going to adopt a Danish immigration policy, which I think might cause a few Labour MPs to, in fact, it might cause you, Matt Stadlen, a little bit of anguish if you've read the details of this.
The government is desperate to stop the boats. Rishi Sunak was desperate to stop the boats. And I believe if Nigel Farage were to become Prime Minister, Nigel Farage will be desperate to stop the boats because it is a really difficult thing to solve. Just for example, imagine we were to leave the ECHR. It doesn't then immediately mean we can deport people back to Afghanistan. There are other commitments. Those commitments might be abandoned by a reform government, I would suggest to the detriment of us as a society and a civilised society. But also we don't have a relationship with the Taliban. So even if we were to leave the ECHR, it does not mean that, for example, Afghans, many of whom, by the way, will be here because they helped us in the war, putting their lives on the line, it does not mean we can simply fly them back to Afghanistan.
Well, Germany manages to do it.
Well, I don't know how successful Germany's been to do that, really.
It would mean...
Well, it would mean potentially torture and death, is what it would mean.
It would mean that schemes like Rwanda would actually work because you wouldn't have people constantly claiming human rights cases to get them off a plane. So you would have that blocker removed instantly. So things that didn't work previously would then work. So there is a reason to leave the ECHR. I mean, there's many reasons why people don't want to, and I understand that. But it's getting to the point now where we're having... They're not small boats anymore. They're large boats. They are massive boats with, 20, 30, 40, 50 people on these boats. And it's got to the point where people, I think, are worried and nervous where they are actually considering Nigel Farage because they believe he's the only one that can actually get the job done. And that's shown in the polls. And I just don't see the Labour Party ever grappling this because I personally don't believe they want to.
Oh, they're desperate to. I can't imagine that they think they can easily win the next election if there isn't a serious reduction in the number of boats and if the hotels are not empty.
This is the party that is constantly fighting for immigration. It's the party who has
They brought the immigration figures down.
2009, they're the ones who opened up the doors. They're the ones who have constantly made excuses after excuse after excuse to make sure that the doors are as open as possible. And then they're the ones who I think, if I'm really honest, I think they're the ones who get a lot of votes in this. So as far as I'm concerned, I think the Labour Party have a lot to answer for instigating a lot of our immigration. And I think that the Labour Party are at fault.
They're losing votes to Sian's party precisely because they're being so tough.
I don't think Sian's party is going to resolve this issue either.
Let's talk to the former leader of Sian's party.
We do have thoughts on how to solve what is a crisis of people using the most dangerous and awful way possible, supporting organised crime to get across into this country when we actually do know
some of them are doing it twice. It's so dangerous.
Most people who claim asylum here do actually succeed because it is a human right, and it's a human right. It's a global human right for a good reason. You have a right to leave a country where you are in danger and where you are being persecuted. You have a right to claim asylum in other countries too, and it's part of.
We need to update.
We
need to update, Sian,
it's not
because
an
we've
old
already used this
argument.
It's because France is not dangerous, is it?
It's an old convention that was put together after the Second World War for reasons that include vast amounts of refugees being created by a global conflict.
It's no longer a viable treaty because of the world that we currently live in. It didn't think about...
That's a ridiculous thing to say.
It's not ridiculous. I have a legitimate
What's different about the world now?
The amount of immigration, that's what's different.
Even Ireland is now saying the Refugee Convention needs to be reformed. It needs to be updated. I mean, it can't be right that the same convention that was created in whatever it was, 1951, is applicable sort of 75 years later.
The same rights are, and we can talk about the practicalities of this. And the reason we have more people crossing by small boats now is because we lost all the agreements that we had with the EU around how migration would be managed and how refugees would be managed across Europe when we exited the EU.
Do you know how many people were returned via the Dublin Convention in the year before Brexit?
I don't. Go on.
13.
Right, okay. And how many have been returned under the policies that we've tried to put in that are really harsh?
Well, about 3, but then they keep coming back.
It's okay.
I mean, it's not statistically
But
very
we do
significant.
need to talk about legal routes. We need to talk about ways people can claim asylum, potentially, from their own countries or from neighbouring countries. At the moment, it's made incredibly difficult to do
Green Party
that.
do? How would you stop the boats?
We'd set up legal routes for people to claim asylum. We talk to our international neighbours about the best way to manage the
Where would we draw the line? I'm the grandson of refugees, and I have a huge amount of sympathy and empathy for the people who are coming here across continents and across the Channel, which, whatever Iain says, is a very dangerous shipping lane to be crossing.
I never
One
said
that is
it wasn't.
horrendous. No, you joke saying it was so dangerous they've come here twice. Come on.
Yeah,
now,
okay.
The point I'm making is, if you were to create safe routes, if you were to create safe routes, where would you draw the line, the arbitrary line? How many people can we sustain who are undoubtedly in need in this country? Is there a limit? Because I think most people, however generous, probably think we can't accept unlimited numbers of people.
I think that's probably completely true. But there are people who have a genuine connection to the UK, and those are the people we owe the most to. But I think on an international level, we have to be talking about this. If every country was to follow what Denmark was doing, one by one, the doors would all be shut. The last country to shut its doors would have an enormous problem, because lots and lots of people would be shut out of other countries and be claiming asylum in our safe country or their safe country. I think this needs talking about, but we're only going to see, the world is different now because we don't have a world war, but we do have a global crisis, which is climate change, which is going to continue creating more and more people who cannot survive in their
You should be a
home
radio
countries.
presenter, because the next question is from Jane in Boston. What is the point of the COP climate conferences? Why did Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband waste their time and our money on travelling to Brazil, separately, of course? Now, the COP30 summit officially opened today, but Keir Starmer made the visit to Brazil last week, returning here before the weekend's Remembrance Sunday commemorations. I watched Keir Starmer's speech. I watched the Prince of Wales' speech, and I did think to myself, really, was that worth it, actually going there? I don't know if you saw them, Sean?
I don't think it was worth Keir Starmer going there simply to say he's not going to pay towards the Tropical Forests Fund, which is really, really important, actually, in terms of the tropical forest being the lungs of the world. These are absolutely crucial issues, and it really ought to be being talked about in all the news. It should have been the top of the news today, the fact that we're having a COP climate summit, and that the introductory speech of that was extraordinary, because it points out that we are simply creating a world which is not resilient, which is not going to be able to support people, and where millions of people are going to be displaced.
I've literally got to ask 20 seconds from each of you, which I know is ridiculous, but I'm going to do it anyway. James?
It's really tough if you've got big energy bills to understand why COP was a good idea for our Prime Minister to go to, I think.
Climate change doesn't stop being the crisis it is because Donald Trump is in the White House or because Nigel Farage wants to be Prime Minister of this country. It is a global crisis. It does need to be tackling. It will be painful along the way, but we can't wish it away.
Lucy?
If we genuinely want to tackle climate change, you have to grow the economy. So the economy must come first, and we must discuss that.
Right, our fun question from Stephen in Westbury. Items related to the Wizard of Oz are going up for auction, including the witch's hat and one of the pairs of the ruby slippers, which was made for the film. If you could have one prop from any film with money no object, what would it be? Sean?
Working prop? TARDIS, definitely.
Has Doctor Who ever been a film?
Probably.
James?
The phone box out of Bill and Ted, in that case.
I'm boyish. I'd like a lightsaber, and I'd like to sometimes rush around the House of Lords with my lightsaber. But that's just my secret fantasy, really.
Oh dear. Matt?
The football from the greatest film ever made, Escape to Victory, a football kicked by
film.
Sylvester Stallone, Bobby Moore, Pele, Michael Caine, someone I've interviewed. Get that football in my living room.
Lucy?
My brain is screaming, please don't say this, Lucy. You know the dress in Moulin Rouge that she wears on the swing? It's not a prop, but I'd look great in it.
I'd like one of the planes from Independence Day, the one that the guy takes up into the mothership and destroys it when he says, "Take that, mother bleep." Okay, nobody else got that.
What a way to end the show.
Exactly, I'm known for it. Thank you all very, very much for coming on the show tonight. On tomorrow's panel, we have Spiked Online's editor Tom Slater, the New Statesman's associate political editor Rachel Cunliffe, plus a couple of MPs, Natasha Irons from Labour and Sir Alex Shelbrooke from the Conservatives. Well, coming up in the next hour, I'm going to welcome my old friend Jackie Smith back into the studio. She's going to be here with me for an hour. No, we're not going to recreate the For the Many podcast for the next hour, because I'm a serious political interviewer and I'm going to grill her on the government's policy towards skills and apprenticeships, because she is the Minister for Skills and Apprenticeships. So she's got a lot to say. There have been quite a few announcements on that regard in the last couple of weeks. It's your opportunity to put your questions to her. If you are a current apprentice, how could the system be made better? How could it attract more interest, not just from new apprentices, but also from businesses as well? 0345 6060 973. Your chance to put your questions to Jackie Smith in just a moment.
On your radio, on the LBC